So we'll just see what happens.
Oh, yeah, that'll turn your jaws to,
I get the rolling. It's getting old, Mr. Griffin.
There you go. It just kicked on. All right, we're going to begin shortly. Again, ensure your cell phones are off or on silent. And council members, please turn on your microphones again if they were turned off during recess. Hey, I'm good. We know it's working. Teamwork. I want to hear those bumps from everybody. We good to go?
You can take it off.
All right, we just got confirmation the stream is back up. All right. Today is Monday, March 6, 2023. This is Committee of the Whole meeting for the Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 6:54 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Citizens addressing council, I checked and there is none. So we will hop into committee reports. And first up is Councilwoman Angeloff with Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting Committee meeting met today at 6 o'clock. We have no new legislation, no pending legislation, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Next up is Councilwoman Thompson with Planning and Annexation and Codes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee met this evening at 6:07 here in Council Chambers. All members were present and all guests are noted on my sheet. We had one new request for legislation, a letter from Stacy Carr, Strategic Planner, requesting legislation to enter into contract with Butcher & Sons for the 2023 residential demolition program. Emergency wording is requested. For miscellaneous discussion, we talked about the active transportation plan passing and applying for a grant for the Safe Routes to School. And Mr. Jaber asked about updates on the Cox Powell building, stating that there was a broken window hanging, so that needs checked out. We adjourned at 6:10. With that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Next up is Councilwoman Coburn with City Utilities.
thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met February 27th. We had a late request, which we invoked Rule 702 to suspend Rule 302, and we voted on that request for legislation last week. We have nothing pending, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Next up is Councilwoman Fry with Public Welfare and Safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Welfare and Safety Committee met on Monday, February 27th. We brought the meeting to order at 6:20. All council members were present except for Mrs. Bailey, who was out ill. I have guests that were present noted on my sheet. We had several requests for legislation. The first was a letter from Chief Morber, the Chief of Barberton Police, requesting legislation to appropriate $7,500 from a One Ohio Fund to the Police Department operating account in the One Ohio Fund. Emergency wording was requested, and this was referred to Finance. The second piece of legislation was a letter from Chief Iona, the Chief of Barberton Fire Department, requesting payment of $5,795.43 to the Life Force Management for EMS collection fees. Emergency wording was requested, and this also was referred to Finance. The third was a letter from Chief Stephen Iona, Barberton Fire Department, requesting legislation approving payment of $8,025.40 to Stryker Flex Financial for payment number 2 and 3 for our heart monitors. Emergency wording was requested. This also was referred to Finance. We had a couple of pieces of pending legislation which were voted on, and there was no miscellaneous discussion. We adjourned at 6:24, and with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Next up is Councilman Griffin with Rules, Marketing, and Development.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met on February 27th. We met in council chambers. All members present except Mrs. Bailey was absent. We had no miscellaneous discussion from council members or anyone in attendance. We adjourned at 6:21. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Councilwoman Bailey, Environmental Health and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Environmental Health and Social Services Committee met tonight at 6:04. All members were present. All others is noted on my sheet. There was a piece of requested legislation, a letter from Mayor Judge requesting legislation recognizing the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. I did add emergency wording as requested, and this was called for and voted on, and it passed. There was just a little miscellaneous discussion about the mosquito position was filled with a Norton resident, and I will find that name once they are appointed to share. We adjourned at 6:07 p.m. and with that I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Councilman Jaber, City Properties, Parks, and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had two meetings. One was a special. That was on February 21st. All members are present. Council members also present and noted. The special meeting was a letter from Don Passon directing requesting legislation to pay an invoice from Akron YMCA of $5,728.35. Emergency warning was requested, and that passed. Then we had another meeting on February 27th at council chambers. All members were present. Council members were present. Mrs. Bailey was absent. First legislation was a letter from Don Patterson, Director of Parks Recreation, requesting legislation to appropriate $126,982 from an unappropriated item general fund to the Parks Maintenance Capital Budget of general fund to purpose the play structure for either to see where the money's going. We push out the finance department. And motion for that. We had a couple pending legislation that passed, and we adjourned at 6:19, sir. That I pass. Thank you.
Sorry, Councilman. You did do the Paragon Concrete?
Those, yes, was that on there? Oh, yeah, good eye. It was a letter from Don Patterson for Parks and Recreation request legislation to change order of $2,280.98 to Paragon Concrete. And that was emergency requested, and that was fine answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jip. Councilman Heidick, Finance and Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance personnel is calling for the following. Legislation to appropriate $500,000 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the miscellaneous general fund operation and maintenance budget. Emergency wording requested. A note ordinance. Meter reading system replacement, $275,000. Note ordinance, trickling filter system at wastewater treatment plant, $75,000. Note ordinance, street improvement project, $1,430,000. Note ordinance, stormwater management system project, $350,000. Note ordinance, front loader acquisition project was amended to $115,000. From safety, legislation to appropriate $7,500 from the One Ohio Fund to the Police Department operating account in the One Ohio Fund. Emergency wording requested. Referred from safety, letter requesting payment of $5,795.43 to Life Force Management for EMS collection fees. Emergency wording requested. Legislation to amend civil service rules, regulation, and procedures to add language for lateral transfers for police and fire. Emergency wording requested. Legislation to appropriate $30,000 from the unappropriated item of the Court Special Projects General Fund 209 to the capital budget of the Court Special Projects General Fund 209. Emergency wording requested. Legislation to appropriate $275,000 from the unappropriated item of the City Grant Fund to the Planning Department's operation and maintenance budget of the City Grant Fund. Emergency wording requested. From Safety, legislation approving payment of $8,025.40 to Stryker Flex Financial for payments number 2 and 3 for heart monitors. Emergency wording requested. Legislation authorizing the finance director to execute and deliver a lease purchase agreement with KS State Bank for $192,799. Emergency wording requested. From Parks, legislation to appropriate $126,982 from the unappropriated item of the general fund to the Parks Maintenance capital budget of the general fund to replace the vandalized play structure. Emergency wording requested. From Parks, legislation to change order of $2,280.98 with Paragon Concrete. Emergency wording requested. And we're moving forward the approval of the financial report for the month of February 2023. And with that, finance passes.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick.
I only tripped over my words once.
I know the feeling. All right, is there any remarks from the body? Mrs. Fry?
I would just like to remind everybody that I sent out an email last week about the tree program. However, nobody answered except Joyce, and Nina, I'm sorry. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody had read that, so that we know that they are no longer doing that program. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Ms. Fry. Is there anything else from the body? I do not have anything, so Mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hopefully you saw last week we posted on social media the city's process that citizens can use on our website to report potholes or other issues in the community. This isn't something new, but wanted to get it back out there as the springtime seems to be coming quicker than previous years, and potholes and being able to repair them, as we talked earlier, with real asphalt versus the cold patch is more of a reality. So this reporting portal is important as it helps log the complaint, but also track it through the process. So also it gives a feedback to whoever's making the complaint, entering the information. So whether it's a pothole or a light burned out or what have you, it'll close itself out once we get in there and do that. So I did bring up lights. We've been working with Ohio Edison on fixing the lights that are not working. If you see a pink ribbon around the pole, that means that it's been tagged so they can come out during the day and fix it. I know that we're going on about 6 weeks with several that I reported. And so we're on them constantly about getting, they're having some logistical issues and manpower issues, but that's not our problem. Our problem is to get the lights fixed. So we're on them about getting that done. So please bear with us. If you have lights out, let us know. We'll come out and tag them with the pink ribbon, turn them in, and like I said, we're on them to try to get those fixed as soon as possible. Last week I spent some time in Washington, D.C. There's a contingent of mayors from Northeast Ohio. We met with Ohio Senators Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance, the National League of Cities, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Transportation, White House Department of Intergovernmental Affairs, and HUD. In my spare time, I also met with our Congresswoman Amelia Sykes' team, and also lobbyists from the Ohio Municipal League to talk more about Ohio specifically. So there are a lot of great new grant programs that will be coming out here soon, so kind of getting an upper edge on those. So we also spoke about SNAP benefits program, grants for road resurfacing. Obviously, rail safety was paramount and continues to be a major subject. Actually, the morning we met with the two senators, they worked together on a bipartisan piece of legislation concerning rail safety. So that's moving forward very quickly, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's some real plans down in D.C. to focus on rail safety. So also talked about commerce and economic development and other development programs, just not economic development, but everything that goes into it. So like I said, water lines, road resurfacing, stormwater, all of those things. So Mayor's Youth Advisory Council is going very well. Students will be involved in a project here in town from the start to the end. So the planning phase, the funding phase, construction, and then seeing it through to completion. So great meetings I'm having with them, with the students. Today was at the annual meeting for the 103rd Summit County Public Health District Advisory Council, which I sit on. We reviewed the previous year and issues facing the communities, and a review of their facilities plan, and also a portal system that they put in for, you can check the history and the status of, they call it water and sewer, but it's mostly septic and well water. So it wouldn't have any of our, they don't inspect our water or our sewer. So it's all septic and well. But good, it's still a good portal to look up addresses and to pull information. So aside from that, construction season's going to begin soon, so we'll keep council updated as projects start to move forward as best we can. So there's a lot planned. Some of it's under our purview, some of it's under the state of Ohio, but we'll keep you updated as things continue to materialize. So, any questions? Yes.
I have one. Elson Point, what's the city's responsibility in places like that? I was with the manager and we walked the area and they have a lot of problems. And she's always saying something about the city. Well, what is our responsibility? That's private property, that's a rental. You know, they even have a street light that a car hit and just took it down. You know, they don't have the regular overhead. They got all underground utilities, underground electric. So they haven't replaced it. So First Energy, that's their responsibility to replace, decide whether they want to replace it or not or whatever. So we don't have anything. Do we repair the roads? What's our
I'll have to go back and
responsibility?
I'll have to go back and reread the agreement, because that was put in before I was in office.
Okay.
Just a few years ago, we were reading through that, and there was a clause that after X number of years that it started, we assumed responsibility of the grounds, which means we'd have to cut everything. And so we called them up and said, that's not what we're going to do. And so they alleviated that responsibility from us. So we're not in charge of the grounds. The paving, I believe we are, but I'll have to confirm that.
Okay.
The lights, I would also assume that we are, but I don't know that for sure.
Right. Who owns the property? We own the property behind them, around them, would be the east side.
No, I believe that is part of the quarry property,
Okay, the quarry owns that, okay.
Yeah.
So it's their responsibility.
because there's a fence back
There's
there.
a fence back there and it's tore down and.
So who owns the fence? I would assume the quarry, but again, I'm making assumptions. I'll have to confirm all that.
Okay, so we'll talk later then.
Yeah, because the fence goes all the way around.
Yes,
And then we did look at, Mr. Shreve, the fence, so it goes all the way around,
Mhm.
right? And there's that little stub street,
Mhm.
like if you're going to drive in.
yes,
Somebody cleaned out to the left of that, to the east of that little stub street. Looks like someone cleaned out. And then the fence line along, if you're going westbound, the fence line along Webb Park, that was deemed not ours. Correct?
That's a privately owned fence.
okay, it's private.
But that's I believe that's a different owner than what's behind Elson Point.
Okay, now, the dead end part of Elson, the dead end part, all the way to the end, on the left side, that's city property, correct?
We were just down there.
We're just down,
So I believe there's a portion that's ours
Okay.
at the dead end. If you think more of at the intersection there, that last intersection, that lot there is owned by the church,
yes.
the wooded area. I don't know how far back their parcel goes,
Right.
if it goes to the dead end or not. But yeah, I believe there may be a paper street at the dead end of Elson, but I'd have to confirm that as well. There is a small little tributary close to the intersection
Yeah,
there,
right.
and we looked at that,
Yeah.
so.
Because I just wondered who would be responsible for all that trash that's there.
We were just.
You were
last
just
week-
looking at that?
Yes.
Yeah, I took pictures. I mean, whoever's responsible, even if it's us, we should do something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of trash.
Amen.
debris.
Yeah.
It's so lost.
Yes.
behind there. Nobody
Yes,
knows it's there.
it's lost until you get, when you're driving, when you walk it, you can see everything
Yeah.
walking, you know.
So we were talking of doing a community project there with some of the youth and maybe some of the congregation from the church and the neighbors, and then bring staff down there and clean it up.
Yeah, yes.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This for you and for the Director Shreve and for Mr. Teodecki, and I know this might be an impossible metric, but when you said 50 tons of hot mix is, and this is me not knowing anything about construction or asphalt in general, is there a metric to say how many potholes that could possibly do with 50 tons, to put it in terms for an idiot like me that doesn't know things like this? And like I said, it may be an impossible metric. I understand some holes are bigger and deeper, but is there kind of an average?
So, and this was a year ago, so I don't know the number off the top of my head. I can find that information, but I do remember finding an interesting metric that had taken an average hole, you know, of 12 inches in diameter by 4 inches deep, and it would fill, 1 ton would fill X amount. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I'll see if I can find it again.
Thank you, because it'd be nice to just be able to translate 50 tons to English. Not everybody in the city knows asphalt, me being one of them. So, thank you, Directors and Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 7:14 PM.